Noah Asenge is a future all-star.
Said it, I'm golden, told you I'm shining, had to break through, plan perfect timing, giving no hands.
So we're continuing our Miami Heat draft series by talking about Noah Asenge. So far, we've talked about Liam McNeely and Rasheer Fleming, two guys that definitely still have potential, but I think they're more ready to play now prospects, where Noah Asenge is definitely more of a project, which at number 20, I'm completely cool with for the Miami Heat. I mean, the Heat aren't such a great team right now, and if they're not able to get a Whale and Giannis or Kevin Durant, then you're not going to be great next year either. So why get a win-now player? Definitely makes sense to get a guy that has a lot more potential, and that is definitely Noah Asenge, because he is 6'10", 200 pounds. He's a power forward who's only 18 years old, born in 2006. When I saw that he was born in 2006 and he was already 18, I was like, what the hell? To me, somebody born in 2006 is like 9. It's just a sign of how old we're getting. But anyways, he obviously has decent size to him with regards to height, but he's still very skinny given that he's 18. He'll obviously grow into that frame a bit more. Now, he did play overseas for a team that, I kid you not, is called Ratio Farm Ohm. I'm 99% sure that's not how it's actually pronounced, but it's spelled Ratio Farm. That's how it kind of looks to me. But it's a city in Ulm, Germany. And actually on that team, he played with Ben Serif, who is another guy that has been linked to the Miami Heat a lot. He might be available in the 20s. Pretty decent point guard. And we'll have a video out about him eventually as well as pretty much every other possible prospect the Miami Heat can take. So if y'all are interested in that and other Miami Heat content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. The support is greatly appreciated. But he played for that team with Ben Serif and another guy named Isaiah Roby, who NBA fans might be familiar with. Played about 150 games in the NBA, mostly with OKC. So there is grown men in that league that Noah is playing with. And I've kind of always liked that about overseas prospects is, yes, a lot of times they come into the league pretty young, but they seem to be able to adapt more quickly just because they've been used to playing with grown men for quite a long time. Now, I don't act like this league or this team is something spectacular. I mean, I looked into the history of that team, and there's been definitely a handful of lower level NBA players. Maybe one of the most known is our guy Zoran Dragic. So that just kind of tells you the level of competition that's been over there historically, but that doesn't mean that they can't have someone really great come out of that program. Now, obviously with these overseas guys, it's kind of hard to find actual statistics because they play in all kinds of tournaments and stuff, but Basketball Reference did have his Euro Cup stats for the last 2 years, and they don't jump off the page at you, but in this most recent season, he had 12 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist on 56% from the floor, which is excellent. And then 29% from 3, which is not so good. But he was about a 73% free throw shooter, so that's pretty much average right there. Now, obviously, I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, this was against some random city in Germany. Yes, there's some lower-level NBA players, but the competition wasn't that high. And yes, that's very true. That's why it would definitely be a risk taking him. But for what it's worth, he does technically have some NBA experience. That team, Ratio Ulm, actually played in a preseason game just a year ago versus the Portland Trailblazers. And in that game, yes, it was preseason, but he got real minutes versus real players. He dropped 20 points. So for what it's worth, we have seen him play against NBA-level defenders. I guess he was probably 17 at the time. And yeah, he was pretty good. So kind of, this is one of the guys that has had a wide range of where he might get selected just because he's such an unknown prospect at this point. Obviously, if a team wants a project, they might reach a little bit higher for him. If they want someone to win now, it'll probably fall. That's why, for example, CBS did have him coming to us at number 20, which is kind of how I'm going in order of doing all these draft videos. I'm going through the mock drafts of all the major publications, and whoever they have the Heat taken, we'll do a video about them, and then circle around to all the surrounding players later. So CBS did have him coming to us at 20, but NBA Draft.net had him going all the way at 13. Bleacher Report had him going all the way at number 9, so they had him very high, top 10 pick. But then the opposite of that, The Ringer had him going number 30, literally the last pick in the first round. That's how big this guy's range is. And then Yahoo had him at 13. Tankathon had him at number 14. So nobody really knows. Just to give you an idea of some of the player comps that I've seen Al-Farouq Aminu to a higher extent. I've seen Jeremy Grant to an even higher extent. I've seen Tayshaun Prince. Now, I did also see Nick Batum, who would be great. Obviously, I'm not a big Nick Batum fan. That's because he killed the Miami Heat in that playing game, a year or two ago now. But that means that he's good. But truthfully, I'm not sure that Noah will ever be a great enough shooter to be a Nick Batum level. But if you look at all the other guys, Aminu, Jeremy Grant, Tayshaun Prince, those are all guys who have been versatile defenders in the league, who are capable of being a three-point shooter. They're not a knockdown shooter, but they're certainly capable. And obviously, if he can become Tayshaun Prince, that would be an absolute home run. So now let's get into some of his strengths and weaknesses. A lot of these are from Kevin O'Connor on Yahoo, so shout out to him, but I'll mix in my own opinion as well based off the research I did. Now, the first strength that they have is athleticism. It says that he's graceful when running, and if you're watching these highlights behind me, you can definitely see that, which is really impressive considering he is 6'10". He moves so fluid, and I guess that's a positive. It actually kind of reminds me, it was kind of funny when Miles Turner was coming into the league, and I was doing my draft research back then. I think that's the year the Heat actually took Bam Adebayo, if I'm correct. So it ended up working out for the Heat. But one of the things they said about Miles Turner coming out of Texas is that he can't run. He runs awkwardly. And I'm like, I've never heard that in a scouting report for a player, that he has bad running mechanics. I was like, I don't want to draft that guy. That guy's going to suck in the league. And here we are like 10 years later, and Miles Turner is one of the best centers in the league on one of the best teams in the league as they just advanced to the conference finals for the second year in a row. But anyways, Noah Asenge is not that. He can run. He's also very good running off-ball screens, sprinting in transition. Two things that would definitely help the Miami Heat offense a ton. One, because they like to run a lot of guys off ball. They like to set a lot of off-ball screens to get guys open, because that's just the right way to play basketball. I think that's how you generate easy looks. And for him to be able to do that at such a young age is very smart. It shows that a high level basketball IQ. And then also the Heat need to continue adding guys who can run in transition, because the Miami Heat have been the worst fast break team in the league for many years now. I'm sure there's statistics to back that up. But if you're watching these games, 9 times out of 10, it seems like they can't finish a fast break, which is one of the first things that you practice in like middle school, a basic 3-man weave, but for some reason he can't do it. This guy can do it though, because he runs really well. And I do think that with a guy like him, and obviously we saw Nikola Jovic get some more run last year. The Heat obviously drafted Khalil Ware. They're starting to add some more quicker guys that can help the Heat pick up the pace, because they've also been one of the slowest paced teams in the league, and a guy like Noah Asenge would help push the Heat in the right direction that they're currently in. Now, he also has a great drive game, since he's natural with the ball in his hands, has a plethora of moves. You see the spin moves, you see the Euro steps, other fluid maneuvers to get into paint. He's also very good at finishing with both hands, which is something that I harp on a lot. When we look at these film analysis videos I was doing in the regular season, we saw Tyler Hero. One of the ways that he was able to improve his drive game this season is by going to that left hand, which, trust me, as someone who plays a lot of pickup basketball myself, I've spent many years working on that left hand, and it does wonders in terms of opening up your game, because it really makes the defense impossible to cut you off in any direction if you can go both directions. And especially for a guy like Noah Asenge, who's 6'10" and has good handle to get to the rim, if he can finish with both hands and he has the moves to get there as well on either side of the hoop, that's just something that shows super promise with him. This is something I do want to note is kind of unlike Rasheed Fleming, because I loved Rasheed Fleming when we did our research on him. Again, that was the last video. Go check it out. But Rasheed Fleming was more of a guy that was going to be maybe like a rim runner on offense, a pick and roll guy, a pick and lob guy. And when he's not in the paint, or sitting in the dunker spot, he might be stretching the floor, sitting at the 3-point line, because he also has a lot of potential because of his athleticism and 7'5" wingspan. But he wasn't great with the ball in his hands. He wasn't necessarily a great dribbler. Only shot like 36% on drives to the rim. And when you're not great in isolation or with the ball in your hands, there's always going to be a cap on what your potential is. But where a guy like Noah Asenge, who is actually very good at getting to the rim, you never know what his potential could be. One of the things I read about him is that he can finish inside with Giannis-esque layups. And as much as I wanted to get excited about that and say, oh, they compared him to Giannis, I think that was just a bit fluff. I'm not going to say he's ever going to be Giannis one day, but who knows? If he's 6'10" and can get to the rim like that and finish, he can be a mismatch nightmare for a lot of guys. This also shows, though, his drive-up game shows that he has a lot of face-up scoring potential, because obviously he can blow past guys. He's quick with the ball, but he will need to develop that jumper, or else guys are just going to pack the paint. This is the same thing we've been saying about Jaime Jaquez all of last year. think Jaime can still be very effective in the paint. We just didn't see it last year because now that he was no longer a rookie, there was an actual scouting report on him. Guys knew to sag off him, and Jaime really didn't hit the jumper at a big clip. But I think if Jaime gets in the gym and works on that jumper, by next season, he can get back to the driving game. And I am hopeful Jaime will have a nice bounce back year next season. One of the strengths that we saw about Noah is his shooting progress. I thought this was a bit weird. They had this listed as a strength because he literally was a 24% three-point, or I guess he went from a 25% three-point shooter in EuroLeague to a 29% three-point shooter. I guess that's technically progress. I suppose I'm not too pessimistic on him becoming a shooter just because his form does look solid. I think he has pretty great follow-through, although it's a bit slower than I would like, but he's still young. I think he has a good base for his mechanics, and once he gets in the league, he'll get with the right coaches to really nail that down. So I wouldn't say it's a strength yet, but he does have good touch on floaters, at least. So once he gets into the paint, he does have a nice soft touch, just like Kel'el Ware we talk about, which for a guy who's 7 foot like Ware or 6'10 like Noah, it's difficult. A lot of times we see big men clank those floaters off the rim. Noah Senge does at least have great touch. It also lists his passing as a strength. It says he plays within the flow of the offense, has creative wraparound passes, over-the-head passes, out of the post. It's just very important. Obviously, in the Heat offense with a guy like Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, those are going to be the guys that you want taking the most shots. So you don't want a rookie to come in and take away the ball from those guys or make the offense stagnant. Now, probably his most important strength that it lists is his defensive versatility. It says that he's multi-positional, quick enough to guard small guards, and can hold his own against larger defenders. Now, I'm not so sure about the larger defenders part, at least not right now. Maybe in Germany, the guys aren't as big, although maybe they are, though. I don't know. I feel like Germany has some big dudes, but I don't know, like Daniel Theis, that's really, and Dirk, right? Those guys are pretty big, but they're more finesse. Hey, either way, I'm not so sure that Noah can really hold his own against bigs in the NBA right now, because he's listed at 200. I also saw him slightly under 200 on a lot of websites, and that's just a bit too skinny at the moment. But he does compete hard, and he is 6'10", so eventually when he gets that muscle frame on him, which I have no doubt that he would do, especially if he was in the Heat's development staff. I'm very excited to see what Kel'el Ware comes in weighing next season. But he will put on that muscle, and I do think he will be able to guard larger players. And we're already seeing him guard smaller players. We're seeing him use his width and his length and his wingspan to guard those smaller players, and is pretty quick laterally. So that positional versatility is critical because the Heat like to switch everything. So same thing we said about Rasheer Fleming. I do think that Noah Senge would work in the Heat's defense the same way. And it also says he's great at help defense, running out to contest shooters, but at the same time, he can be an interior presence in the paint or play off ball in the passing lanes. He can really just do everything on defense based off what I've seen, and especially once he gets more muscle. So that's the part that gets me most excited. I just think he has extreme two-way player potential. If you're watching this video, then you are an elite ball knower, so why not take advantage of it with MyBookie? Listen, y'all, throughout the NBA playoffs, I'll be using their live betting feature to smash the Davion Mitchell overs and smash the Rudy Gobert unders, and then using their early cash out option to stack up the profits. If you want to do the same, make sure to sign up for MyBookie using promo code MM50, which will instantly boost your first deposit. And then once the games wrap up, you can check out their casino, which has blackjack and slots and roulette, you name it. Bet on anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Now let's get back into the video. Now, some of his weaknesses, obviously you got shooting. We talked about his progressions a little bit, but I think it'll get there. A lot of guys coming to the league that young are not great shooters. I remember I just heard today, I think it was on the OGs podcast with Mike Miller and Udonis Haslem. They were talking about how Kawhi was an 18% three-point shooter one of his seasons in college at San Diego State. I didn't know that. I assumed Kawhi was always an efficiency monster. He wasn't, but he worked on his game, and if you had the right work ethic, anything is possible, as cliche as that sounds. But obviously his shooting, obviously his strength, which I don't want to harp on too much more because he's only 18 years old. And then it also says he needs to work on his fundamentals a little bit, drives into traffic a bit too often, but that's common for young guys. He'll learn, and he's probably one of the best players on his team right now. When he gets to the NBA, he'll have a completely different role, and I'm not really worried about that. So truthfully, the list of weaknesses is short. That's it. It's really just a guy who's a bit of a raw prospect, and if the Heat aren't ready to take that on right now, they won't draft him. But to me, unless you get a whale, get the project. Maybe this guy does have all-star potential and he could completely change the direction of your franchise, 5 years from now. So as far as his fit on the Miami Heat, I'm not sure he would play much as a rookie just because he is so young and Spo hates young big men. We saw it took Khalil Ware months to even sniff the courts. But I do think he'd be a backup forward, maybe a potential Highsmith replacement since Highsmith is a expiring contract this year. So similar thing we said, with Rasheed Fleming, except I do think Fleming's fit with Nikola Jovic off the bench is a bit cleaner because Jovic is finesse, Rasheed Fleming's more power. But in this case, Noah Asenge is similar to Jovic in a lot of ways. Noah likes to have the ball in his hands, and he's not a great shooter off ball. So we know Jovic will ball handle, be a point guard or a point forward in some spots. And a guy like Rasheed Fleming could space the floor for him, sit in the corner, where a guy like Noah is not going to really do that right away. So that fit is a little bit questionable, at least for the first season. But if you're the Miami Heat, you're probably not drafting a player for next season. So I'm not really worried about fit. Just draft, best player available. And also, I guess there's the upside that, let's say you do draft him and you don't have a trade in place yet. Well, then maybe one day a team is interested in him because he has so much potential. Let's say you have the draft and then after the draft, Giannis asks for a trade. Well, if the Heat draft a win-now guy who fits their system, Milwaukee's not going to want that guy. But if the Heat draft Noah Asenge, maybe Milwaukee says, hey, give us 3 first-round picks, Tyler Hero, Jovic, Khalil Ware, everyone. And we'll also take Noah Asenge. That's the little sweetener for us because this is a guy that can maybe be the next Giannis for us. I don't know. Who knows? It's just another tip in his cap for why the Miami Heat might want to draft him. It's just because I think more teams will be interested in a potential trade. But really, that's all I got to say for this video. So let me know y'all thoughts down below on Noah Asenge. Make sure to drop some of your favorite prospects below so when I do make a video on them, I could screenshot your comments and shout you out at the beginning of this video, or at least display them like I did for this one and the last one. But yeah, like the video. All the support is greatly appreciated. Make sure to subscribe. We're on the grind to hit 8,000 subs. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. This homegrown bitch don't offend me.